At this time, I would like to call the October 27th Diversion Board of Authority meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Peterson.
I am here.
Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mayor Dardis.
Here.
Mayor Carlson.
Here.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Here.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Here.
Mr. Ebbinger.
Here.
Ms. Preston.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mrs. Shirley. Mr. Steen.
Here.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Olson. Mr. Seljevold.
Here.
And quorum is present.
Wonderful, thank you. A couple of you on virtually, just if you have to speak or wish to speak, please just jump in and let me know, and I'll put you in the order as others are wishing to speak. So with that, we look for the approval of meeting minutes from September 22nd. Presume you had a chance to review them.
Yeah, so move.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Move in second. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Order of the agenda. We do have a slight amendment to the order of the agenda. We are striking under item C. We are going to strike item II or item 2. And then there's a small revision under the consent agenda, and you have that before you. If you want to pull it, let me know. It's not a substantive revision, but it's the MSA lowering from 6 years down to 2 to be more in sync with what we're doing with our executive directors. That's item number 3, which is Program Advisor Services. And again, you have a copy of that before you. If you want to pull it down to discuss, let me know. But otherwise, it's pretty simple, just 6 to 2. Otherwise, no other amendments. With the exception of that, that is the revision to our consent agenda, and the remainder of the agenda as presented is exactly as you see presented before you. So look for a motion to approve as amended or discuss.
So move.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. The order of agenda be approved as amended. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, as discussed just previously, the consent agenda as amended. Any discussion on that? A motion? What action would we like to take?
For approval.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded, the consent agenda be approved as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mayor Dardis.
Aye.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mr. Ebbinger.
Aye.
Ms. Preston.
Aye.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mrs. Shirley.
Yes.
Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Mr. Seljevold.
Aye.
That is everyone.
Thank you, everyone. On to our regular agenda. Item 4, Executive Director Report. Mr. Paulson, please. What do you got for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. A few things happened this last month that I just want to get in front of you, and then I did get a request from some board members for more of an in-depth P3 update, so I'll share some things that are happening on the P3 side as well. This last month, we did attend an award ceremony, and the authority did win 3 awards. You can see those. The first one is Public Sector Promoter Procurer of the Year. This was from the P3 Awards ceremony, so this was the big award to win for the year. Only one public entity in the world wins this award, and it was the MFDA for our procurement process. As the board recalls, this procurement process took 5 years. Was not easy. It was the first of its kind in the United States, where we've dealt with a flood control project and trying to bring that to the private markets. Really, this opportunity, you can see Andrew accepting the award there. Andrew Dobson's been with the program throughout the procurement, was really the consultant that provided most of the wisdom and guidance for preparing such a unique document. So it was a great opportunity to just honor the work that Andrew had done on the program. And of course, also shout out to Mr. Shockley and Mr. Nicholson, who are also intimately a part of the procurement process and made it what it was. So great work to the team. The other 2 awards, Best Financial Structure for a P3 project and Legal Advisor of the Year. I think both of those should say John Shockley behind them, because John was involved obviously with the financial structuring of the project. And then, of course, John was the one that we had tasked with managing Ashurst from the legal advisor perspective. So certainly, John was involved in both of those. So again, great representation of the great work that the board and the DA has done. Of course, we're not in this for awards, but they do indicate that we're doing something special here, and we are getting acknowledged from the industry and the marketplace for the great work that our team has done. A few project accomplishments on the construction side. We had our second gate hung at the Wild Rice structure. And then we also had the completion of the first southern embankment portion, SE1, this last month. And then I'll do a few P3 updates because we've had a lot of activity and just to kind of keep the board aware of where things are at. We did release for construction for the stormwater diversion channel last month. We did start construction on Reach 1. ASN has started excavation of the channel and construction of the levee in the first section of the channel. They also continue to strip topsoil and build haul roads in the second section of the channel. I did go past the site yesterday, and if you haven't gotten up north lately, they have been making a lot of progress. So if you get a chance to head up there and kind of see the operations, they are working 7 days a week around the clock right now. They do anticipate to do that throughout the winter months as well. So we're not going to see a slowdown in construction for the winter like we would normally see. It's pedal to the metal and trying to get this built as quick as possible. Most of the utility relocates for the first section of the channel are ongoing right now. We hope to see those done by the time winter comes. ASN has also provided release for construction drawings for the first section, so we're actively reviewing those and working through those designs. Designs are finalized for nearly 10 different components of the diversion channel at this point. And so we continue to move forward on getting those plans approved so they can start construction on those as quick as possible. ASN plans on having all of the utility drawings for us by the end of this winter or during this winter. So we're seeing a lot of great progress on the utility relocation side. And then Magellan and New Star have both completed their relocations across the channel, which were large gas lines that need to be relocated, very expensive, as the board knows. So that work is wrapping up here as well. But so that's just a brief update, but certainly available for any questions that the board might have over happenings that we had this last month.
Any questions for Mr. Paulson? How's our construction team doing for staffing?
We're doing well on our side, and we're able to turn around our obligations to ASN in a timely fashion. Once in a while we'll get some things that need some additional work or they get just held up in the process. But for the most part, as far as staffing, we appear to be okay at this point. I know we do have some employees on the DA side that are working exorbitant amounts of overtime. So we're trying to, deal with that and deal with that workload. But it's always changing, as you can imagine. One day we may get a pile of plans to review. The next day we might not. So it's always kind of a little hit and miss as well. It's kind of a difficult thing to manage, but we will have that discussion, I think, early next year. We'll know more as an entity and how we're dealing with the turnaround of construction review documents. And it certainly could be a discussion with the board if the authority determines that we need to reduce overtime and bring on an additional staff member to handle the workload.
Well, I think that's one of the things we discussed prior was us being the holdup and not wanting to be that, right? So we want to make sure we produce and kick things out as quickly as humanly possible for these folks. They can keep pushing and most importantly, not come back to us and say, hey, we were delayed by 3 or 5 or X amount of weeks or months because of your team. So yeah, if you see a struggle there, please let us know.
Yes.
And obviously you can do the math between whether it's overtime versus a full-time employee. Sometimes the math on the FTE makes more sense than the overtime. So keep us abreast of what is transpiring. Any questions up, Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, Joel, a lot of our employees are exempt. Are your employees not exempt? So do you have a fair amount of overtime that is paid out every month?
No, Mayor, they're all exempt employees at the authority. So
So
there's
we-
no overtime paid out.
So who are we paying overtime?
All members of the authority are, we're not paying overtime, but we're logging overtime. Let's put it that way. So, it's not ideal to have an employee working 60 hours a week consistently. And, we have to look out for burnout and those sorts of things. And so it's something that's, presented itself now that we're well into construction. We have better clarity on the amount of work and the amount of workload coming for our team. I don't think it's something we need to take action on immediately, but it's something we need to monitor as we move through the next couple months. Because Commissioner Peterson is correct, within the project agreement, there's a fiscal priority for us to turn around the documents in a set amount of time. If we don't do that, there certainly is delay and compensation claim that can come from the developer. So we need to make sure that we are properly staffed and we're turning around our responsibilities according to the project agreement in a timely fashion.
Well, we are at Main Street Initiative, and we're talking about how to retain employees. And I guess you have not come forth necessarily with, needing new personnel or whatever. Or do we need to subcontract or look at way to subcontract to offload some of that work at some time as you look forward, other things you need to do? So in our engineering and the county engineering department, oftentimes we subcontract out work if our team is overwhelmed. So I would just offer that I think it's important that we don't burn our staff. And if need be, we look at a methodology to handle that extra work, because I think now you have a better idea what's coming at you, what the expectations are. And I know Jody's doing a lot of work on the lands, and we need to add different people in certain areas. But can you just maybe sometimes praise the board just about who you have and who you might need or want to subcontract out over the next year?
Yeah, that's a great thought, Mayor. And we do have the ability to work with our consultants when we need to ramp up and ramp down. And we do that regularly. But there are a number of specific tasks that DA employees have to take care of, just to protect the board and protect our position with the project agreement. So it's more of that kind of work that I'm monitoring to make sure that we have proper DA staff, and then we move up our consultants up and down depending on workload and things that do come up. And as the board sees on a monthly basis, sometimes we'll unencumber a large chunk, sometimes we'll come with a contract amendment. All of that is trying to balance that workload behind the scenes to ensure that we're operating effectively. Great discussion, though. It is.
Any further questions for our director? Any further questions? If not, we'll move on to the next item. General Counsel updates. Item A, Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item on the agenda that I have for you is a joint resolution for the SRF loans for the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund. Pursuant to our funding and finance plan for the entire project, we had contemplated that sitting just below the Whitfield loans would be some SRF loans that would be a maximum of about $80 million. We have moved forward with the SRF loans in the amount of approximately $53 million. These are for projects that are mainly located within the city of Fargo. That would include lift stations. The reason that we sought this financing is it is a 2% interest rate. So there's 1.5% for the interest rate and 0.5% for the administrative fee. It is part of the financing plan. It was contemplated in the master indenture of trust. However, because it is a new issuance of debt, we need the authority to approve it along with the supplemental indenture. This morning, the Cass County Joint Board met and approved it. You may ask, why does the Cass County Joint Water Resource District have to approve it? That's because it relies on the Special Assessment District as backup. It's not counted as revenue, but it is a backup, and therefore we have to have a joint resolution between the Cass County Joint Board and the Diversion Authority Board. I can certainly answer any questions you have, but this was all laid out in our finance plan, and we're just sort of starting to execute those smaller elements of the finance plan.
Any questions for Mr. Shockley on this? This is an actionable item. Mayor.
John, you have a capacity to do 90 million. Why do you only do 51 million?
So right now, that's the projects that qualify. We have another application pending for the drinking water side. So with SRF, you have to have projects that qualify. SRF is divided between clean water and drinking water. Clean water is what we think of as stormwater, which would include lift stations and sanitary sewer systems, those sorts of issues. Whereas the drinking water side is drinking water pipes. And so the drinking water elements would largely be limited to those items to relocate the Cass rural water district lines. And so we're going through that process right now. The Master Indenture of Trust contemplated the use of both loans, that they would total about the $80 million. So right now we're just taking 50, and it still allows us at a later time to pull that additional 30 million either through the drinking water or through the clean water, depending upon what projects are qualified for it.
And the interest rate will remain at 1.5 regardless when it's taken out?
Yeah, that's the SRF program. So it's a total, just for clarity, it is a total of 2% interest, but it's 1.5% interest, as the mayor had indicated, plus 0.5% for administrative fee. The term of the loans are 30 years. The nice part about these is that as opposed to a normal bond, you don't start paying the interest till you start making the draws on the bond. So it's very much like WIFIA, where it's better than the private market. So.
Commissioner Steen.
Thank you. John, you probably mentioned this, but you referred to the 80 million, but the resolution's for 90, and maybe I missed some discussion in there.
Yeah, that was the max. Sorry, it was a maximum of $90 million. So let me clarify this. So there's a couple things going on. Within the finance plan, we have carved up the assessment district as a backstop. So when you think of the different loans, think of a waterfall. So we have the WIFIA loan and the SRF loan sit at the top of the waterfall in what's called a parity. We carved out $90 million of backstop for the assessment district for those two loans. And you may say, why did we only carve out 90 million of the assessment district for those two loans? That's because they're primarily funded from sales tax, and the $90 million sits as a backstop. The next carve out of the waterfall, so to speak, is for the refunding improvement bonds, if we ever have to issue those. That's about $300 million. I'd have to go back and look at it exactly. And then we have a reserve capacity to secure the availability payments to the developer. Once again, it just sits as a backstop. So we carved up the assessment district, which has a total value of about $800 million into different parts. And so the $90 million of assessment capacity does not match up to the WIFIA loan total amount, which is quite a significant amount more, and it doesn't really match up to the SRF loan amounts because it's primarily being paid out of sales tax revenues.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions on this item? Or discussion or a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mayor Dardis?
Yes.
Mayor Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mr. Ebinger?
Aye.
Ms. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Shirling?
Yes.
Mr. Steen?
Yes.
Mr. Seldsvold?
Aye.
That is everyone.
Thank you. Item B on our agenda, Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back in April of 22nd of 2021, the Diversion Authority in Cass County entered into an MOU whereby upon request of the authority, as the diversion channel progresses, the Diversion Authority would request that Cass County take over certain portions of existing roads and close and obstruct those because some of the bridges aren't going to be replaced. And so this is a resolution that's just following through on that MOU, where the Diversion Authority is formally requesting that a section of a township road be permanently obstructed, taken over by Cass County and obstructed. You can see on page 247, it's identified in Exhibit A. It's a section of road. It's just to the west of the I-29 interstate, just kind of to the north of Harwood. So pretty standard process. You'll see a number of these come through as construction starts to progress up in that area as it moves from north to south.
Bridge over it, huh?
Any questions on this item?
Move to approve.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Take that out because it goes over there.
Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mayor Dardis?
Yes.
Mayor Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson? Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mr. Emminger?
Aye.
Ms. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Steen?
Yes.
Mr. Soldier.
Aye.
That is everyone.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, can I just ask one question?
Mayor.
How did you decide not to put a bridge over there, John? Because I'm assuming farmers and stuff have used to have that road there. So is it just with the project too expensive, or there's alternative methods?
My understanding, and this I'm going back to my history of the procurement, is there was a group of the technical team and local engineers from both Cass County and the TAG group went through and looked at the transportation improvements that would be occurring due to the diversion project, and they identified the bridges that would cross the diversion channel and the roads that would be terminated. And I think they strategically picked different bridges so that it wouldn't impede transportation too much. Obviously, a farmer might have to go an extra mile or two, but that they made a decision based upon the technical input. And I don't know if Jason can probably answer more about the actual specifics of that crossing.
I just remember Mayor Mattern has made a big thing about bridges over the diversion site in help with the emergency vehicles. So there must have been a discussion about this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mayor. So we chose the locations for the bridges over the diversion at the county road crossings. Typically, those road crossings have also crossings over I-29 and are those primary routes. And that's where we want to push all that traffic is onto our county roads where we have the funding and the capacity to maintain those routes versus a township road. The only township roads that do have crossings are 38th Street, which is south of the Raymond Interchange, and then also 52nd Avenue. And that was the one that we added in coordination with the city of West Fargo. So we had one location for a crossing at 40th Avenue. We went to two. One at 32nd and one at 52nd.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Any other questions on this one? If not, we'll move to item C. All right, item C, Mr. Shockley, and please note this is before you, board members as well. And Mr. Shockley will address an amendment on item 8 or on page 8 regarding vacation. So, Mr. Shockley, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Pursuant to the discussion and the direction given at the board meeting last month, I worked with the chair and negotiated with the executive director regarding Section 502, the cost of living adjustment. And what we came up with and the executive director agreed to was a cost of living that would be the average of the 5-member entities. So it would take into account Clay County, Moorhead, Fargo, Cass County, and Cass County Joint Water Resource District's cost of living. Add those together and divide by 5. As an example, based upon this year's cost of living adjustments from all 5 entities, it would be 3.7%, and that calculation would be performed each and every year of the agreement. I would note one other change. As I was doing a last-minute cleanup on the agreement, we had some hanging language left over from the last round where it provided on the effective date when Joel was first starting that he'd receive 80 hours of vacation time to start. We would strike that also because he's already started, and just want to make clear that he's not receiving an additional 80 hours of vacation. So with that, I can stand for any questions, but I think we responded to what the board's concerns were.
Any questions for Mr. Shockley?
Move to approve.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mayor Dardis?
Yes.
Mayor Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mr. Ebinger?
Aye.
Ms. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Shirley?
Yes.
Mr. Steen?
Yes.
Mr. Stelzwold?
Aye.
That is everyone.
Wonderful. Mr. Shockley, anything further?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Item 6 on our agenda, U.S. Army Corps. I thought I saw Miss Williams online. Let me pan here. Yes, Miss Williams.
Good afternoon. Terry Williams, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I'm happy to present our monthly update. For the diversion inlet structure, as shown in the upcoming drone footage, the contractor is placing the bridge deck components over the dam, and they're also placing a whole lot of bedding and riprap downstream of the structure, downstream of the stilling basin. We anticipate that the 3 gates will be hung this winter at the diversion inlet structure. Number 2 at the Wild Rice, they are also placing the bridge components over the Gate 1 bay. As you remember, we've hung Gate 1. So now that that's in place, they're able to place the bridge deck and the mechanical platform over that gate bay. They're also completing the dam walls and approach aprons. We anticipate that Gate 2, it would have been hung by now, but there was a little bit of a glitch, so that is pending and will happen soon. At I-29, the drone footage covers beautifully. The big news is that County Road 18 interchange was opened last week. I'm sure that the traveling public is very happy that that's finally open. And they're also have completed placement of 2 bridge decks with 1 left on one of the bridges over the Borrow Ditch. For SC1, as Joel said, that is complete. We've got a final inspection pending. And right after that, we anticipate turning that piece over to the MFDA for operations and maintenance. Number 5, the Red River structure. The big milestone that started here is that they started driving H-pile and sheet pile for the foundation of this massive structure. A lot of H-pile being driven over the next few months to form a good base for this structure. We anticipate that the first concrete pour at the red could happen as soon as February. On to Drain 27, that remains on schedule. Right now, we anticipate completion in December of this year. For Drayton Dam, another kind of big achievement there. The contractor completed placement of the sheet pile weir for the new dam, and we'll start placing riprap downstream of that sheet pile weir, which forms the actual dam and the fish passage components of the new dam. Number 8, Southern Embankment, reach SE2A. They are placing embankment along most of the length of 2A. The drone footage also covers that really nicely. And then number 9, this is the designs that are all ongoing right now. The 2 big changes from last month are that you can see we added a reach, SE3U. We're splitting off part of SE3 to assist with relocating utilities through that corridor. We also had to move out the contract award for SE2B into early 2024 to accommodate some ongoing design changes and land acquisition as well. There's absolutely no threat to not being ready to run this project by 2027, though. All on track. If you go to the next page, we've got one picture to show you. This is at the Wild Rice, where Ames, the contractor, is placing the mechanical bridge deck and the access bridge across Gateway 1. That's the end of my update, and unless there's any questions.
Wonderful. Any questions for our friends at the Army Corps? Any questions? Last call. If not, thank you, Ms. Williams. Are we going to show the video footage now, or? Yeah, I'm seeing a nod, so yes.
Hi everyone, I'm Tom Fuchs, the Senior Construction Manager for the Metro Flood Diversion Authority. Notable progress was made again this past month along the southern embankment and the structures that will control water flows during times of extreme flooding. At the diversion inlet structure, 44 precast concrete bridge deck segments, which were fabricated in nearby Hawley, Minnesota, were installed atop the floodwall piers leading up to the abutments of the control structure's vehicle service bridge. Additional precast concrete bridge girders will be installed spanning across the control structure itself, providing access for Metro Flood Diversion Authority personnel during FM area diversion operations. Work is wrapping up on the upstream gauge well structure and has continued at the nearby control building, where the sidewalks and parking lot have taken shape. On the downstream end of the control structure, crews have also begun placing about 20,000 cubic yards of riprap, enough to fill a half dozen Olympic-sized swimming pools. Over at the Red River structure, crews have completed structural excavation to a depth of nearly 50 feet below existing ground, where the deepest of the structure's footings will rest on driven HPAL foundations. Those foundations were delivered and stockpiled in recent weeks, and installation has now begun at the structure's base. Sheet pile walls will be installed to cut off seepage below the structure, while 87,000 lineal feet of HPAL will be used to anchor the Red River control structure itself. For perspective, that's 360 times more than the height of the North Dakota Capitol, the tallest building in the state. While Ames Construction is hard at work on the structures, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is marking completion of the first segment of the 20-mile-long southern embankment, SE1. Their contractor, HB Construction, has started work on the next stretch reach SE2A, which is just east of the diversion inlet structure. This section will span another 2 miles north and east. Upon the embankment's full completion, it will hold back floodwaters upstream of the FM Metro during times of extreme flooding. I have a quick update on the I-29 road raise project for you this month too. Drivers in the area will be happy to know that the County Road 18 interchange has reopened. Crews have also poured the southbound Borrow Ditch bridge deck at the project site, a portion of more than 14,000 cubic yards of concrete to be installed on the I-29 project. If you would like more updates on our construction progress, just check out fmdiversion.gov or follow us on social media.
Wonderful. Ms. Williams, if you're still with us, some side commentary here when we were watching the video. It might be helpful if you could give, whether it's yourself or Don, your one-pager ahead of time so you have some chance to review it, even if it's emailed correspondence the day or two before. Ideally, it's part of our packet, but if for whatever reason it's not timely enough to do that, that'd be helpful so we can prepare questions. So I'd be grateful if you could do that, please.
I will do that, sir.
Awesome. Thank you. And it's just Chad. I think anything else, Ms. Williams, for our team here?
That's all I had. Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 7. Amy.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I have a quick communications update for you. The 5th issue of the Diversion Current went out on October 6th, and we anticipate sending the next one next week. You'll notice our clicks are still, the click-through rate's still above average, but we had fewer links in this last one, so that number dropped. We're still hovering around the mid-30 percentile for open rate, but I have a couple tricks up my sleeve. So if that is not above 36% by next month, Mr. Chairman, I will purchase a drink of your choice because I am bound and determined to get it up there.
Do you know how much iced tea with lemon costs in this town?
I'll save my pennies, sir.
Whew, okay. Someone's going to be bucking for a pay raise pretty quick after this drinking. Anyway, yes, please continue.
On the PR side of things, we get a news release on the P3 awards that Joel spoke to, and also just sent one on the public meetings that are coming up for lands. The website, we're moving forward. Copy is done. We've seen some design pages, and we are pushing to launch that by the end of the year. So that's something to look forward to. And then on the next slide, I just have a quick quarterly look at how our social media platforms are doing. Engagement increased across the board on all of our platforms this past quarter. LinkedIn continues to be our strongest platform by far. That's where we see the most engagement and interaction. And the drone video updates perform very well on social media as well. As you can imagine, everybody's very interested in seeing that progress. We're also seeing good feedback on, kind of the big things, the awards, the groundbreaking, and then any other construction updates is what people are really looking to get from those social platforms, it seems. So we're continuing that path. And that's all I have for you this month, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Mayor?
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to note a correction in regards to the flow adjacent updates. The one scheduled for Thursday, November 3rd, it says, now it does say Clay County Courthouse. It was saying Clay County Law Enforcement Center.
We have had it. Yes. So please go to the Clay County Courthouse, not the Law Enforcement Center like the last one.
Perfect. Anything else for our comms team? Wonderful. Thank you. Item 8, land management. Ms. Smith, I guess you're going to kick this one off for us, please.
Yes, I am. So I do want to begin by introducing one of our newest team members. Madeline Gohoover is right back here. And so thank you to the City of Fargo, because she was a land specialist with the City of Fargo 2 weeks ago, and now she's with us. So very appreciative. I know. Thank you, Mayor Mahoney.
Can you kind of look to West Fargo sometime to do these things?
I'll go pick on Mayor Dardis next time, but
Stay
she's
away
going
from
to
the county. That's fine.
That's right. She's going to be a wonderful asset for us. So really her focus is to take on the property management and then helping us with some of the stakeholder communications, particularly with the Cass County Joint Resource District Board and the MCCJPA, in collecting all the board packet information and communicating effectively with those board members. She'll also be serving as a point person for right of entries and working with our constituents if they have qualified for a RIMP loan. So again, we're trying not to overwhelm her. We recognize she's kind of drinking from a fire hose, and she's working with our partners over at AHS to kind of get some of those key items that they've been working on transferred over to her. So be kind, because we want her to stay. So before you on the screen, you have a couple of maps that you're used to reviewing. A couple of things to pay attention to: the acquired property. So that is outlined in green. Last month was at 721. This month it's at 734. Please note that those only switch to green once all the closing documents have been signed. We have additional 31 flowage easements that are pending signature, but the property owners have agreed to the offer that has been made by the MFDA. We do have sorry, Peggy. We do have several purple on there. That is our eminent domain cases. There's a number that's illustrated on there. Those are basically the parcels that are in eminent domain, but not necessarily the number of cases that we track it by. Any particular property owner can have anywhere from 1 to 5 different parcels in their litigation. So a couple of months ago, I just had a conversation with Patrick Springer at the Fargo Forum, and I did pull up what we were looking at about January. There were 33 pending cases. Right now we have about 10. We have several of them that are just pending those purchase agreement and the closing documents to be finalized. The remaining 10, we are in active negotiations with all of them. We do have a couple of court dates that are coming up upon us. I'll bring that further to your attention as we get closer to those dates, as we still may be able to negotiate a settlement between now and then. So the next slide just illustrates the construction footprint, and we are in completion with the property acquisition for that. Primarily the area that you're seeing that has not been completed is in the Southern Embankment area. Most of that is laying with our partners in Minnesota, but by no fault of their own, because we are still waiting on final drawings for Southern Embankment Reach 4 and 5. Without those drawings, it just makes negotiations a little bit more complex, because we don't know exactly where those embankments will be placed. And so while we're still able to negotiate with them, it is a little bit more difficult for our land agents. Once we get those final drawings, we'll probably make significant progress in that area. And then, of course, the UMA footprint is primarily those flowage easements that we're looking at. On the next slide, I'd like to point out on the bottom row, that stormwater diversion channel, that 99.5%, the Cass County Joint Resource District did approve that final property acquisition in that area. So next month, you'll see that turn all green, and it'll be sitting at 100%. On the top row, there hasn't been significant changes since last month, but there are several that are in the queue. I know that there were several that were approved this morning and later this afternoon by the various boards. And then on the final slide, just want to go over some of the property acquisition status report. So again, we continue to negotiate settlement agreements for existing eminent domain cases. Again, the Cass County Joint Resource District did approve the negotiation of another property that involves 3 owners, and 2 parcels. So we're excited to get that moving. We are finalizing appraisal reports and making purchase offers for SE2B and the Phase 3 flowage easements. The Phase 3 flowage easements, there are about 30 that we're still waiting on. Those primarily involve residences. And as soon as we can get those completed, then we'll complete the negotiations with the appropriate property owners. We're planning and the coordination for batch 1 of the last written offers for flowage easements. All those batch 1 property owners sat within the North Dakota side. So again, that went to the Cass County Joint Resource District this morning. Those letters are prepared. They will be sent out on Monday. It gives the property owners who are involved in that batch 1 30 days to complete negotiations, and then authorizes us to go into eminent domain if necessary. There are 10 property owners involving 20 parcels in batch 1. We're prepared to bring batch 2 at the November 17th meeting. We'll bring batch 3 in December, and then in January there will be additional batches bring forth to both the MCC JPA and then the Cass County Joint Resource District. So for most of those property owners, their appraisals were approved last January and February, and then they did receive those offers in March, and our land agents have been working diligently with all of them since last March until now. And so there's been a significant amount of time, energy, and resources put forth in negotiating with those property owners. We're at a point where we need to start filing eminent domain with some of them just so that we can stay on schedule if it does need to go through the entire process. It's important to note that even if we go through with this, we will continue to negotiate with those property owners just like we are now, with hoping to reach settlement before it would go into any court dates. So the next item on there is we're finalizing the guidance document and process for mitigation of structures in the fringe areas. This is important because there's several property owners that are kind of on the fringe of the UMA. And if there's the opportunity that we can provide some other mitigation efforts so that perhaps they don't need to relocate, we want to be able to provide that. It took some time to work with our real estate team and with our technical team to make sure we had the same appropriate guidelines in there. So we applied the same principles to everyone when those efforts came forward to us. And then, of course, the last bullet is a lovely lengthy memo that we're currently preparing to send to the Corps to map property owners out of Zone 1, which would allow them to stay there. It's important to note that this does not involve all property owners. There are 8 different properties that are in Zone 1 that we're currently looking to map out. There's a couple of private property owners. There's 2 cemeteries. There's a cell tower, and then there's a water treatment plant and wells associated with that. So our goal is to get that to the Corps by the end of this month, and then hopefully they'll be able to have a quick turnaround to provide that feedback. So are there any questions that I can answer?
Any questions for Ms. Smith? Doesn't look like anything further to add.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you. On to item 9, Finance. Mayor Dardis, looking for an exciting report from Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope to live up to your expectations.
You know you will, sir.
The item that is listed in your agenda is an update of the City of Fargo for projects bid in 2022. There was a project that was bid. It came in 135% over and above the engineer's estimate. And through the really good work of Fargo Engineering Department and Nathan and his team, they rejected the bid and went back to the bidders and had a discussion with them. And the problem is that, and this is for erosion protection and bank stabilization on the South University flood wall. And what was found out is that the contractor was concerned about a wet spring and being wetted out, if you will. So it was for demobilization and mobilization to get in and out of there. So through the negotiations of the Fargo engineering team, it will not be paid unless the river goes above 30 feet for over 3 weeks. So again, that still is an increase of $330,000 to the bid, and that was in the 2022. But I want everybody to note that this project increase and the total project cost will be transferred to the 2023 budget, cash budget, excuse me. and we're not requesting anything on an amendment of the 2022 budget. So I think that's important to understand. And again, the work that Fargo Engineering did was to take some of the risk away from that contractor that would be down there in the riverbank. Also, we had a report from Ms. Gayhart from the City of Fargo Finance Director. We stand at $143 million in cash on hand. And also, we had another look at the 2023 draft budget, which is the second time that the Finance Committee has got a chance to see this. The one notation as it was presented yesterday is that there's been about a $20 million increase from version 1 to version 2. And the cash budget, looking for your approval, will come forward in the coming months, either November or December. So that's about all we have. I stand for any questions that you have.
Any questions for Mr. Dardis? If not, Mr. Bacchior, do you want to jump into this and give us some additional context so we can take action, please?
Mr. Chair, I think Mayor Dardis did a great job summarizing what we talked about yesterday. I could certainly answer any questions if there's anything further. But yes, this is an actionable item, so we do have a proposed motion on the screen for the board to accept the updated Fargo work plan.
I would remind the board that we are doing an amendment to the 2022 bid, but it's going to be in the 2023 cash budget. So it's kind of confusing.
So I have a question for Chris.
Yeah, Commissioner Sherling, please.
Thank you. So, and it's not directly related to this particular motion, but just in general, I'm seeing a lot of county requests and issues with banks erosion and stabilization. Is this? Do you see this as a continued issue that we're going to have within the city of Fargo and some of these levies we put up? Are we going to have to go back and do some more work?
Commissioner Sherling, yes, this was discussed a little bit yesterday during the Finance Committee meeting as well. The city of Fargo is monitoring several locations for this same type of erosion and bank stabilization. As of today, they're not seeing any signs that those areas are having issues. So could it be something we'll have to deal with in the future? Sure. But right now we're seeing things stabilizing and being in pretty good shape through our flood protection projects within the city of Fargo and Moorhead.
So right now, in fact, we just finished work on further down University on 81, a big project that city of Fargo is somewhat involved in because I believe there was a sewer line going through there. But is there anything that we should be forward thinking about as far as how we're bidding these out? Is there something else we should be doing so that we're not running into these problems continually?
You know, the river system certainly is dynamic, Commissioner, and those are things we can always be monitoring. But I do know as we are, in particular, building flood control features next to the river, we often call them pinch points where the river gets close to our flood protection features. I know from past experience on this particular area on South University and others that Nathan referred to yesterday, we do evaluate those and look at the susceptibility to erosion for the flood protection purposes, certainly, but also just for the general stability of the river. This is one area where, as we built that project, we identified this as a potential concern. As the city monitored it and saw that it started to become a real concern, then addressed it with this project. So certainly I think the diligence of just monitoring these areas that where the river gets close to, whether it's the county road system or our flood protection features, the ongoing monitoring and maintenance of that is to me the best indicator of that. The city did install inclinometers in a few of these areas that were more susceptible and have been monitoring those as a way to do that and look for signs of things happening that we can't see visually on the surface. Certainly could be something we could talk about on other areas where the river gets closer to, like I said, the highway, which is I think the issue on further south on County Road 81. So.
Exactly. Okay. Well, thank you for that.
You bet. Thank you, Commissioner. Anything further from the board? Questions, concerns, discussion, a motion? Commissioner Steen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the motion regarding the City of Fargo project FM-21-A2, erosion protection and bank stabilization of the South University flood wall for an increasing in budget of $330,000 and a new total budget of $3,135,000.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mayor Dardis?
Yes.
Mayor Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mr. Ebbinger?
Aye.
Ms. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Steen?
Yes.
Mr. Solzivil?
Aye.
That is everyone.
Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Next item on our agenda is other business. P3 safety update. Wampler, there you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time today to kind of give you an update on our current safety statistics and then our plan moving forward with the flood diversion project. So our current statistics, right as we are today, we have 60,000 hours without an injury.
Is this when we knock on wood, or should we wait?
You please
consider the
we should
wood
probably
knocked.
all do it at the same time. We've currently orientated 70 field employees, and we currently have 42 pieces of equipment operating in the field today. As you can see on the chart, we have, during this reporting period, year to date and project to date, we are still at zero, which is great with 60,000 hours, and we intend to keep it that way. So I did a quick case study on another city project that happened recently. It was the Las Vegas City Center project. It's kind of a tongue twister, excuse me. That project was a $9.2 billion project that happened over a 3-year period. And as you can see, during that 3-year period, there were 6 workers that were direct contractors that lost their life. The subcontractors, there were 9 subcontract employees that were killed in that 3-year period. So during that 3-year period on that project, 15 workers lost their lives, to the point where it became known as the City Cemetery Project. To this day, if you ask anybody that was on that project at that time, they still refer to it as the Cemetery Project. So looking at the project as we are today, how do we prevent that from happening with our project? How do we keep from becoming city center? And what's our plan moving forward? And, you know, we have a lot of standard terms, standard slogans, safety first, yet I stand before you last. Safety starts at the top, and we need to look at that and decide who is that top? Where's that top? And that's that's where safety starts, and that's where the health and safety of our workers, that's where it comes from. You know, our project orientation is really the first thing. That's the first introduction that our employees get when they come to our project, and our training programs that they go through before they go out into the field, and that all happens starting day one. Before they can go to the field, they have to go through our project orientation. They have to go through training programs in order to be able to work in the field. A robust safety auditing program. So my team, the team from Jacobs, we go out daily. I have a team in the field. They're out there every day auditing, looking at the project. And the big thing for us is if they see it, if they see something's wrong, if they see an unsafe condition, they stop everything immediately and we correct it immediately. We don't wait until tomorrow or the end of shift. We have to correct those things as they are sitting at that moment, as they are being a hazard at that moment. Leadership accountability. I said it a while ago, safety starts at the top. Our leaders must promote our safety programs every day. And that's what we expect from them. And that accountability process, for me, I've been in safety for 22 years, and I've seen a lot of safety programs come and go. Accountability is something that is always standard. It has to be there. Again, immediately correcting any unsafe conditions. Prioritizing safety as our number one core value. And when we look at a project of this size, and when we looked at really any project, there's always going to be a schedule that has to be met, and there's always going to be a dollar figure that has to be maintained. But what is the number one core value? What's the most important thing? I think looking at this particular project, all of our workers to this point are coming from North Dakota and Minnesota. Our people are our most valuable asset, and there's no way to get around that. Start every meeting, every day, emphasizing that safety is our number one priority, and that's our goal. At ASN, when we go sit down in a meeting room, the first thing we talk about is safety. Every morning on the job site, the first thing we talk about is safety, because it's the most important thing, and it's what we should be doing. It's the right thing to do for our workers. And finally, we never make our employees feel as though a dollar or a date is more important than their health, their well-being, and most importantly, their life. So that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, feel free.
So maybe a statement. When I started my career in architecture and construction, I was afraid of big machinery. I've caught myself not being afraid of big machinery anymore. And this is the kill ya kind of trucks. I've woken up to that. I guess I'd say probably 5 or 10 years ago when I almost had a thing happen. But yeah, I'm glad to see we've had this many hours with no incidents. And like I said, the young guys are the problem, and the old guys like me that get secure in their space and understand the guys running the equipment, they're always looking for me. They'll see me. And when this equipment hits you, you don't break an arm or break a leg. You don't wake up. So yeah, it's wonderful. Let's please keep this up, because Vegas is a beautiful town that I adore. I had no clue. I watched this construction project go up as my frequent visits allowed me to. And I had no idea they lost 15 people on that site. I had no clue. So that's disappointing to learn.
In a 3-year period. It's
disappointing. Any questions, Mayor?
Chairman, could you just please send your presentation to Commissioner Strand? He has a keen interest in safety, and I think you'd enjoy it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any further discussion or questions on this incredibly important project? If not, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Paulson, you have something for us, item B.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have monthly handouts for the board. I'll hand these out after the meeting here.
Okay.
Just updated talking points for everyone. So if there's any questions after the meeting, just get a hold of me.
Make sure our friends online get a copy too, please.
Sounds great. I'll do that. We'll email something out too.
That's wonderful. Next meeting, anything else under other business, team? If not, our next meeting would be November 17th. I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Is there a second, please? We stand adjourned, everyone. Thank you. Oh, Mayor Dardis, you have one item for us?
I have one item for you. Earlier today, Mayor Mahoney and I had the opportunity to sit down with Senator Hoeven, and at the conclusion of the other business that we were discussing, he asked about how all you were doing and how the project was going, and he has seen some of the footage and all of those types of things, and he wishes us his very best. So, again, Senator Hoeven is still thinking about us in the diversion.
Wonderful. All right, team, thank you. Appreciate everyone's time.